What's up, Capoeira Nation? Welcome back to the Capoeira Experience podcast. Thank you so much for coming back. Thank you so much for being part of the Capoeira community. And thank you so much for keep listening to the podcast. It's super cool to see more capoeiristas joining the podcast and seeing numbers of the downloads. I'm pretty sure people are enjoying the shows and the conversations and the really cool guests that we have here. Is so much value that everybody brings to the community, and I want to highlight them here on the podcast. And I think everybody can add something valuable to the Hoda, and every single person in the community can add something valuable. And then speaking of valuable, is very important for us to not only take care of our injuries but also to prevent them. If you prevent them, you're not gonna have injuries, which is a extremely common in the capoeira community to somebody have an injury, either knee or shoulder or lower back. Those are the very common. And then just there's all the little ones. But today I have a special guest that he's specialized on those kind of stuff for and has a degree and certifications on injuries and how to help our bodies to get better and to prevent those kind of injuries. So let me introduce you to Pasta. How you doing, man?
Muito bom. Tudo bem, gente? I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Nice. I'm super excited to have you, man, because he's injuries is such a like I don't even know how to explain. Every single person that has at least over 5 years doing capoeira has something.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that. I mean, I've only been doing capoeira almost 3 years, and even just the past few months, I've had some people in my group suffer injuries that I've had to coach them through. But I'm glad that they trust me enough to seek my opinion, and it's a kind of amazing how quickly they can bounce back.
Oh yeah. And then just to like throw it out of the gate, what are your certifications and your they your background on the medical part?
Yeah, so I studied physical therapy. I'm a doctorate of physical therapy. I got it from Columbia in 2015, Columbia University here in New York City, which is still where I live, and I train capoeira. So I've been practicing almost 7 years now as a physical therapist, now running my own business as the abstract physio. And right now I'm dedicating my time to aside from having a strength and conditioning background as a
So cool.
CSCS, I've done powerlifting before. My movement background is wild. Like I used to be a
Fantastic.
salsa dancer.
Nice.
I used to play American football, and now I have a Taekwondo background. So that's my first martial arts exposure. And now
So
here I
cool.
am as a capoeirista, pretty
Yeah,
much full time.
that's
But
awesome.
what I realize is I do a lot of strength training still, a lot of strength and mobility training outside of my capoeira school. So I feel like that gives me a greater ability to deal with because sometimes we train hard,
Yeah. Oh
like
yeah.
especially when we're doing floreo training or we're doing a lot of ground movements. It's certainly like demanding on your body. You wake up the next day and you might feel really sore. But if you feel sore, that's one thing. If you wake up and you're like, I can barely move, that's not desirable. So what I
Yeah.
do is try to give individuals the tools to limit the I guess you can say the negative effects of training, if there are any.
Okay. And then is how you mentioned before of the recording that you have like the mechanics of the human body, right? You understand a little bit of the well, a little bit. You have a degree on those kind of stuff, but is do you see now when you step into the Hada or when you are in the Hada, the first thing that you see is form, or you say like, oh, this person twists the knee too far, or this person that's probably why the knee hurts, or this person is overextending the shoulders, or that's probably why the shoulder hurts.
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer honestly because we were speaking about my experience in capoeira. So if I'm looking at an aluno like a cora crua and I see
Yeah.
something like that, I can say, okay, yeah, they're not doing a good job with their technique and they might hurt themselves if they keep doing it this way. If it's more of a graduado or an instructor, it would be more of. They're also very good at adapting to that and doing something a different way. So it's not as easy for me to look at a higher level chord and diagnose it on the spot unless I see like a quick, like for example their knee buckle in and then their movement slows down or
Okay.
something like that. So it's a little bit
yeah.
more difficult to determine in a higher level capoeirista.
Okay. Hey, Capoeira Nation, I'm very happy to announce our workshop with Fosmanda Coruja, or also known as a Fosmanda Joy, all the way from New York on May 14th here in Indianapolis, hosted by us here in the Capoeira Brasil Indianapolis. And this is going to be a 2 hours full of Capoeira. The first hour is going to be full class with Fosmanda Joy. And we are going to have right after that a full hour of Hada, or full hour of us moving, connecting, and playing as much as you want and as much as we can. The early bird is going to end 1 month before the workshop, okay? Make sure you register, click the link below, and come join us on May 14th, 2022 for this amazing workshop with Fosmanda Coruja. Yeah, because is they adapt, like you said, we adapt to those movements, and then you just slip a little bit, you just switch it up to something else.
Yeah, because for example, if and I think most people would agree, the most common capoeira injury would be knee pain, especially during a negativa.
Oh, yeah.
So if you have pain with a negativa and you're a graduado, then instead of doing a negativa, you'll find some other way to go to the floor, or maybe you won't play on the floor as much. And so you can kind of disguise what's bothering you.
Yeah.
And then afterward, people will come up to me like, "Hey, this hurts. Like, what can I do for it?"
Yeah. That's pretty cool, man. It's cool to see the perspective of somebody that has experience on those injury prevention and injury improvements to in the Hada, and then now, man, you can see and hear to 10 years, you can be like, oh yeah, you're doing this form is pretty bad, or your back is hunched too much. That's why your lower back hurts.
Yeah, I hear that a lot during when people are learning how to jinga, and when you jinga for a long period of time. Like if you don't take the pressure through your legs, you're gonna take it through your lower back after a while.
Yeah.
So people are like, oh, my back hurts when I jinga. What can I do? Well, obviously you can work on your technique, but a lot of it is becoming, I don't want to say strong enough, but you have to be able to last a long time in a jinga.
Oh yeah.
So like building your quadriceps strength and utilizing your getting into a lunge properly, like making sure that your knees are in a good place, really helps bear your back. And it's hard for me to demonstrate on a podcast.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I would have to do more of like a visual session of like what it looks like to protect your back and what it looks like when you're using your back too much.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, and then you outside of capoeira, you see kind of like commons or common pain on like age range or like whatever background a person has related with capoeira, or like for example like football players they get injuries so quick.
Yeah, a lot of it, sometimes it's just random, like you can have a non-contact injury where you kind of plant your leg and then you cut a different way and maybe your knee hurts. So that's one thing, but I hate to say it, outside of capoeira, most of the general public experience pain because they're not doing enough to take care of themselves. So for example, people sitting at their desk for a long period of time may develop neck or back pain because they're not spending enough time stretching or giving themselves a break. I know during COVID, a lot of people had to change their work environment from being at an office to their home, and they might not have a great setup, or they're just, not getting up and moving as much. I'd say the best part about my career is that I'm not sitting very often at all. So I'm sitting, I'm standing, I'm kneeling, I'm on the floor. So I'm getting constant movement. So I'm not in these stationary positions all the time.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of the regular injuries are just people either not having the time to take care of themselves, or they're just doing the same thing over and over, and that's feeding into a movement pattern that's going to increase their likelihood of getting hurt.
Yeah. And then before we keep moving forward, what is your social media so people can follow you there and see your content? Because you have pretty cool content there.
Muito obrigado. I'm
Yeah,
trying. I'm
of
trying.
course.
So right now I'm on Instagram and TikTok as Dr. Jordan Seda. So Dr. Jordan Seda. Fun
Nice.
fact, in Spanish that means silk.
Ah,
So
yeah, yeah, say that, yeah.
it does, yeah. So Dr. Jordan Seda. I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. Pretty much, if you just Google my name, you're gonna see a lot of cool stuff.
Nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a lot of really cool content there. And I see some of the Negativa stuff and lower back, and yeah, there's so many really cool content there. If you have the chance to go check it out, check it out. Because if even and it doesn't have to hurt. That's the other thing too. It doesn't have to hurt for you to look for the information, and then just before it hurt, just go there so you don't get to that pain. It's annoying. It's annoying when you're in the hot and you're like, oh, you feel it there, and then or you cool down when the adrenaline is gone, and then all the blood goes down, and then you just feel it there like, what did I do? And then you don't understand.
Yeah, yeah. My intention with the content, obviously, if someone's in pain, they can turn to it
Hundred
for
percent. Yeah.
I don't want to say advice, but to have an idea what they can do. But a lot of it is getting to it first,
Yeah.
and just appreciating like, oh, I didn't even think that doing a quechada would potentially cause my hamstring to pull. So maybe if I do this, it'll keep that from happening. I could keep playing in the Hora
Yeah.
because I don't think anyone wants to stand outside the Hora and just watch or play in the bateria, which I mean there are times when I just play in the bateria and I'm jamming out and it's fun, but you want to get in there and apply your training and have
Oh
good
yeah.
games.
Oh yeah. And just have fun and take care of your body, and then just like enjoy the moment and don't be like on pain. Don't be like I can get in the hot because whatever hurts.
Yeah, I mean, I see it happen. I've seen injuries happen in Rodas, and it's kind of cool in a way where I can just go over to someone and be like, hey, just try this out right now. At least get the pain to come down. If you don't feel like going back in, don't go back in
Yeah.
today. But especially on like a Batizado weekend, like you don't want to be hurt when you have 4 straight days of capoeira.
Oh
Like you
man.
need to, and but those are also the times when you can get hurt because some people aren't used to doing that much physical training in one time.
Very, very good point. Yeah.
So it really is an effort, and I'm not saying that it's easy because some people have families, some people have to work a lot, and maybe for some reason they just had a bad night of sleep or
Yeah.
whatever. So it's hard to go after it 4 straight days, but those are the times when you really have to focus on recovery and taking care of yourself, doing some stretching, doing some like self-healing work
Yeah.
outside of the training.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such an important thing that sometimes, and including myself, that we don't take care of those kind of stuff, and then after events we start feeling it and be like, man, this is so annoying. This little thing is just annoying that it's preventing me to do whatever I actually want. And then what would be your capoeira story, your how you started and how you got to into capoeira?
So I always tell people that capoeira found me. I didn't find
Nice.
capoeira. I always knew what capoeira was. I think growing up in my generation, everybody played with Eddie Gordo and
Oh yeah.
Tekken.
Oh yeah.
So everyone had an idea what capoeira was, but I was reading a book, and when we say the park in New York, we mean Central Park.
Okay.
I was just like out there, and I saw people doing floreos in the distance, and because there was music associated with it, I was like, okay, I can understand that's capoeira and not just people breakdancing or tricking,
Yeah.
which is all. They're also very popular here in New York. And at the time, I was looking for a community because I felt like I had like some friends, but like I wanted to be part of something where I can go and just like hang out with
Yeah.
people and just vibe out. But also, I was doing primarily just powerlifting at the time. So if anyone knows what powerlifting is, it's basically training to do squats, bench, and deadlift, which are all fantastic exercises to
Yeah.
do. But I wasn't challenging my mobility very much, and I would go to all these classes and I would sit in a squat with my butt touching the floor, and people were like, wow, that's like incredible. I can like raise my
Yeah,
arms all the way over my head. They're like, wow,
yeah,
like how are you not? So the movement aspect of capoeira intrigued me because I saw the body's potential, and I knew that we like when you look at dancers and you look at certainly the highest level capoeiristas doing
yeah,
like au samao and like crazy things like that, you're like, wow, if I can do even a little bit of that,
yeah,
like it's always nice to have something to work toward. And I felt like capoeira offered me, and it still is to this day, something to work toward.
yeah,
And I
yeah, yeah, yeah.
think I'm always reminded by my professor and other members of my group that it's a lifelong, capoeira is a lifelong journey.
100%.
Whereas, you know, I think if I continued powerlifting, I would get stronger. Maybe I'd compete, but then there's going to be a period when I'm not going to be able to lift as heavily
Oh yeah,
anymore. And it would just be, I don't know, I feel like I would hit a plateau, and I kind of did. I wasn't really enjoying it that much. And
yeah.
capoeira, it's like you never know what's going to happen. You never know what kind of game you're going to get into,
Yeah,
what you're going to train.
like you said it there,
And
like before, it's just like there's always something. There's always like you learn A, now you go B. Like now you
yeah,
know B, now you go C.
and that's just even in the jogos. I'm not even talking about playing betting bow, learning how to
Yeah,
sing.
the
So like,
language, the culture.
yeah, it's
Oh
like
man,
I got my kaishishi and my pandero over here and
nice.
everything. So I again,
So cool, man.
there are so many layers to, you know, and I can't speak for every group, but my group here in New York certainly spends a lot of time on music on top
Nice,
of just playing in the roda.
nice. That's awesome. Let's give it a shout out to your group and your professor. Where do you train in your professor?
So my group is called Capoeira Guatambu.
Okay,
It's a brand new group led by Professor Gojinho, who has over 30 years of capoeira experience.
nice,
He came here about 5 years ago, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong. And slowly but surely started his own group, and we have a really tight group. We had our first batizado last September
oh nice,
as this group. Yeah, it was a very small one because we couldn't fly anyone in from Brazil or
yeah,
anywhere. So hopefully our batizado this year is going to be much larger.
nice.
Yeah, so but I'm having a great experience. It's the reason why, because there are so many capoeira groups here in
Oh
New
yeah,
York, and I just feel connected to mine. And I hope that everyone who's training wherever they train feels connected to the members of their group and the quality of instruction. I think
very
that's really,
important. Yeah,
I think it's incredibly important
oh
to
yeah,
have fun because it's meant to be fun, but to
yes,
really create a good energy
oh yeah, oh
in
yeah,
capoeira. So it's like when you come to our school, you know that when you're in the Hora, there's going to be good energy because
nice,
we take music very seriously,
nice.
very seriously.
Nice, and that comes from the leadership, right? Because if he leads us as an example, and I can tell he does because just the way how you speak about his passion for capoeira, like goes through you guys, and it's really cool to see that coming from the students. It's really cool, man.
Yeah, it's like we're trying to. It's hard because we're also in the United States, where capoeira's origin is not here, and we have different lifestyles compared
Yeah,
to even other countries, let alone just Brazil. So we're dealing with a lot of working people with families that come and go. Sometimes maybe can't be consistent, but the constant
yeah,
is our foundational principles of our group that we're not willing to sacrifice. We need to uphold the traditions, like the origins of capoeira, Afro-Brazilian culture. Like our group also focuses on traditional Brazilian dances like maculele.
oh
We'll
nice,
do we'll do some jongo,
oh
and
cool. I love jungle.
yeah. So my professor is really innovative in his way of keeping the tradition alive, but
Nice,
finding a way to relate it
yeah,
to contemporary, just contemporary way of life.
yeah, 100%. And then now that when do you start capoeira, and what when was that? What year, and what were you doing? Your background when you started capoeira,
Wow.
besides
Was
powerlifting.
Yeah, so that was 2019, and it's one of those
Oh,
things
like
where
right
like you,
before the pandemic.
yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah,
crazy. That's crazy.
yeah. It would have been nice. I wish I would have come across capoeira earlier in life. I would certainly be further along, but you can't. And it's funny. I don't know if you're familiar with this capoeirista and breakdancer Negin.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was at my first class. So you want to talk about being intimidated when you walk
Oh yeah.
into a room and you see the floreos of
And he's
that
so
cal.
fast.
Yeah, I
Just
mean,
like if you blink, you're not gonna see the kick.
yeah. So it was like you go into your first hoda with people like that in there. Everyone's dressed in their abadas, and I'm coming in street clothes because I wasn't part of the organization yet.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was the only new student. But what I loved about it was that so many people, so many of the graduados came over to make sure that I was, understanding the movements to the best of my ability. My professor obviously welcomes everybody
Yeah.
with open arms, whether you're a new student, whether you're a traveling student from another country, another city. You're always welcome to train at Guatambu.
That's
And
so cool, man.
I'm telling you, I may be biased because I'm part of the group, but I really feel like we're doing some big things, and it's certainly one of those things where yeah, it might be late in the evening and you had a rough day at work, but you always leave class feeling like
You're gonna come
nothing
back.
else
Yeah.
really matters.
That
Like
you want
you,
more. That's so cool.
seriously, we have trouble leaving the studio after class.
That's so funny.
Because then we're just like, okay, I hope like, okay, thank you, everyone's done. And then someone jumps on Atabaki, someone
Yeah,
else is
yeah.
practicing floreos over there.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's just like, we have to leave.
Yeah. No, I totally know how that is. And it's cool, man, because as a teacher, the teacher perspective is really cool to see your students on that position because we were there at some point where we didn't want to leave. We want to keep training, spending time with our friends, and you just like, oh man, I gotta wait one day, or I gotta wait if it's Wednesday, just as an example. I gotta wait till Saturday to see them again and to train capoeira again, man. And it's cool to see that attitude with the students.
Yeah, what capoeira has done to my life just in 3 years is incredible.
So
And
cool, man.
I
I'm
really
very
look
happy you're
forward
playing
to
for that.
where, yeah, I really look forward to what's to come. And I know it doesn't get easier. I I think once I realized that I'm like, okay, now I'm in this. It's not just a
Yeah,
fun thing to do anymore. It's not just a workout.
yeah,
There's a lot of layers.
yeah,
But I
yeah, yeah.
embrace it, and I think that's why we're intrigued by capoeira and why we keep coming back is
Oh yeah,
because there's nothing else like it.
oh
There's
yeah,
nothing else like it.
oh yeah, oh yeah. It's just like it's very very unique, and that's the awesome part of capoeira, in many
Hmm.
aspects, many aspects. So the what was the common capoeira injuries that you see in capoeira, like for the last 3 years, the top three injuries that you see, like man, this keeps happening and happening all over the place.
Yep, for sure. Definitely knee pain, negativa, number one, 100%. I multiple people in my group alone, let alone what I've seen on social media, it seems like the same trend that knee pain because it is a very demanding position. Like
Oh
you're
yeah, oh
twisting.
yeah,
Anytime you do a hole out of negativa, troca negativa, anything of that nature, you're twisting. Or even if you throw like a meia lua de compasso from a negativa, there's a lot of rotation around your
yes,
knee. So you really have to train that rotation in that much knee bending, which none of our life activities come close to doing that.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so I would say that's number one. Number two, I've seen a lot of hamstring and groin pulls with Queixada and Armada.
Ah,
And I'm
okay.
saying that assuming that those terms are consistent along
Yeah,
many training systems.
yeah,
But if you don't have the flexibility, and it's not even just flexibility, because mobility and flexibility are not the same thing. Because you could put your leg behind your head and be
yeah,
flexible, but if you can't move your leg quickly over your head, then it's not mobility, you just have flexibility. Because when you're throwing a keshada, it has to be getting to that position very quickly and then bringing it back down.
Yeah.
So there's an extra layer. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but you mentioned a point very important. So you think that the mobility is the combination of flexibility and strength, like that middle point?
Yes, I think the highest level of control is having mobility and not just flexibility or just strength.
Yeah.
Because you need to be able to control movement.
Oh yeah.
When we think about capoeira, like a lot of the positions we assume are not normal. Like think about what it takes to do a meia lua de compasso and the amount of rotation around your hip in that range. It takes a while just for your body to appreciate that. And I know as an alumno, like at first it was like, this feels really tight. And then after a while it gets better.
Yeah.
Not to say that's a common injury cause, but because when you throw a queixada and armada, like your leg has to, if you're keeping your knee straight and doing it properly, that's a pretty decent amount of stretch on your leg. So depending on how many you throw in any hoda or any training session, this is a point I kind of want to make to everybody. You have to be aware that if you go, for example, to capoeira 1 day a week and you're throwing 30 queixadas and armadas, but the rest of the week you don't train even stretching your leg to that degree, it's going to be likely that you are going to get hurt at some point.
Yeah, 100%.
You need consistency.
Yeah.
You need consistency. Like even if you're not training capoeira, like you at least have to, I don't want to say stretch, because just stretching and holding like we think about isn't exactly what you need. What I would suggest, for example, if people could picture standing on one leg and bending forward, that's a dynamic stretch. But because you're doing it against gravity and you're doing it in motion, you're loading your hamstrings, you're loading your calf so that it's getting stronger. It's not just getting longer.
Yeah.
So it kind of replicates more of what a queixada and armada would do versus just like thinking about putting your leg up, reaching, touching your toes, and holding it there. You're not training it the same way, and that's not necessarily going to make for a better queixada or armada.
Oh, yeah.
So what I do in my career is to give people those types of movements that, load and because you have to establish a connection between your brain and your body. Every muscle, every ligament, every tissue in your body gives your brain information about where your leg is in space. How much is the muscle stretching? How fast is the muscle stretching? So you have to train. You have to train. Like, and also, am I going up and down, side to side, twisting left, twisting right? Like, we get information from so many different movements and speeds of movement, how long we're holding movement. It's complicated, and that's why doing like a regular stretch isn't enough.
Yeah.
So be consistent and challenge your muscles and movement patterns in various ways. And I think if you listen to nothing else in this podcast, those would be the tools that I would give you to decrease the likelihood you'll get hurt.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And yeah, it's so cool that to see something so simple as a queixada. It can actually injure somebody if it's just no consistency on the training and just a little twist on the wrong way and the lack of training on that way. And then it's just crazy how I love the human body. That's why I enjoy capoeira, because it's just the tricky movements and how you call it, uncommon patterns for the movements. It's just so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot about consistency. But what I do and what I encourage other people to do outside of capoeira is you need to build a tolerance to doing all of these movements. So, for example, some people are sore doing an AU multiple times for the first time because they don't know, like putting that much weight through their arms is not something that they're used to.
Yes.
So, for example, now that I'm doing it more frequently, you'll see me putting my legs up against a wall and doing handstand push-ups, or doing something where I'm putting weight through my arms, doing overhead presses to make sure that I'm putting weight through my arms over my head.
Yeah.
So the likelihood I'm going to hurt myself in AU is going to be less than someone who just goes to class and does an AU and might not necessarily be as strong and resilient as I am because I'm doing a lot of training outside of the studio.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And you also have the knowledge that like if you don't do these kind of things, that's going to lead to something else. Because a lot of us come from the ignorance, and a lot of people get offended with the ignorance word, but it does what it is, right? So it's just like the lack of knowledge on something. So it's I started capoeira when I was 15, and when you're kid, you just jump all over the place, and you don't care how you land, or you don't care queixada with twisting your knee, like over twisting your knee, and 5 years later, your knee just all on pain, and you're like, I don't know why my knee hurts.
Yeah. Yeah, even for me, I think, especially as an alumno, when you're going through learning the movements the first time, your body is going to have a response because it's not used to being in those positions.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I remember I had a hip injury. See, I get hurt too. Because a lot of it is like, how much training am I doing? I was doing a lot of training. I think I trained capoeira like 5 times in 1 week. And I was doing, no lie, I did armada con martello on each side at least 5 to 10 times a day. And for somebody who doesn't know what that is, it's a lot of like quickly coming across your body.
Yeah.
And I have a dominant side. I think all of us have a dominant side.
Yeah.
So I was using my dominant side a lot to the point where the front of my hip started to get really sore, and I had to start doing things outside of training to specifically address my hip injury. So it's not to say that I don't get hurt.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
You're going to get hurt doing things.
Oh yeah.
It's just life. You can get hurt stepping off of a curb the wrong way.
Oh yeah. Man, I'll tell you a story, a really funny story about that.
So I mean, all you can do is try to prepare for the likelihood that if I do step off of a curb, well, if I train my ankle to get good at twisting, it's probably not going to swell up on me because it's used to being there. If I train my knees to go over my toes, maybe negativa won't be so bad for me. If I train my leg to go high at various speeds, maybe queixada won't be so bad, and that's the thing.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like that. And when you say that, it's funny that we train so many crazy movements, right? One time, just taking a bunch of boxes out of my apartment, I'm going down the stairs. At the very, very last step, I twist my ankle, and it's just like my foot just swollen because at the very last step, it's just on the like you said, you get hurt just doing something outside of capoeira, and then it just happens.
Yeah, it's all about training your body to deal with anything that comes its way. The way to stay, like the example I give people is, you should be concerned if you can't put a bag in an overhead bin on a plane without assistance. You should be concerned if you can't sit on your toilet bowl without feeling like, oh, my back and my hips are really sore. And you really have to start thinking about what's meaningful in your life. Like, I think that's when I start to affect change in people, when I can point out, why do you have to sit out from training all the time? How does that make you feel that you can't participate, or that you're not buying as many games, or you just had a grandchild and you can't get on the floor to play with them?
Yeah.
And it's not for me to decide what's important to people, but it is how I help people understand that they need to start taking action and accountability about their physical well-being. Even though it's not just physical, it's also mental. I think you can appreciate in capoeira, like, if you lose your head, you're going to be less controlled in your game. You're going to be more vulnerable to getting attacked.
Songs sings that talks about that.
Yeah, but it's like also the decisions you make. Someone who's calm, at peace with themselves, they're going to make better decisions against their opponent. And, I think, and again, everything I say is coming from my little understanding of capoeira relative to yours and certainly my professors, but I'm starting to realize how all of these factors make for your performance in the roda.
Oh yeah, totally. And yeah, it's the same. It's the same people like soldiers, right? They train to be on a extremely stressful situations, and then just a regular person that goes through that is totally different outcomes, and just because they train for that, right? And then is like you said, we just gotta train for for the quixada, and you just gotta find those patterns that can help you to not get injured. And then now that actually leads really well to the next point, which is like how to train if you are injured, right? Like for example, let's say like the person that has the knee pain and has 2 years doing capoeira, and unfortunately they did a bad twist on the knee, and then they hurt, but they want to keep training and they want to keep doing negativas. How what is your advice for that kind of stuff?
First, we have to determine the extent of the injury. So if you can't put weight through your leg, you have to shut it down that day.
Nice. Okay.
You have to start working on gradually being able to put more and more weight through your leg, because then it's a matter of just daily life hurting.
Okay.
If So there's a difference between if things in life hurt and just capoeira specific things hurt. So if it's just sitting into a negativa, all right, well, you have options. You can either not do as many negativas that day and work on gradually getting your knee to bend and twist more outside of the roda, or if you're doing it in the moment in the roda and you're like, it hurts a little bit, but it's not getting worse as I keep training, that's a good sign. I would say go for it. You can keep doing negativa that class. The more you do negativa, if it starts to hurt more, then you have to try to modify your game. And if you can't modify your game, just don't play that day.
Yeah, and then start adjusting and kind of like examining yourself, and because sometimes you get caught on the excitement, right? And then I just want to do it, and then you forget about the pain, and then when you get out of the hall, you God dang, why I did this again.
Yeah, but I'll show you. This is what happens, and this is your value to your group
Yeah.
when you are hurt. If you can be a well-rounded capoeirista and contribute to the group by singing, by playing instruments when you're hurt,
Oh, yeah.
then you can. Then that is when you offer your. That is when you are at your best. It's like, okay, if one of my contributions to the group is compromised for now, I have other ways to contribute to my group.
100%.
That's when you know you're a well-rounded capoeirista, and certainly in my group, there's a lot of appreciation for that, because to bring that energy in the roda with the quality of music, the quality of your instrument playing, that's why capoeira is beautiful. That's why capoeira is beautiful. So you don't have to. If all you can do is play in the roda and you're hurt and you can't do that, then it's going to affect you more. But that's when you have to be creative and understand there are other ways.
Yeah, totally. Because I always tell every time my students are like, hey, I'm not gonna make it to class. You just like, wait, what happened? I don't know, my knee hurts. Just as an example, he's like, well, but you can play pandero. Play pandero while we do the class. So just like practice pandero or binimbao in the corner while we train. Then, but that's a very very key important to somebody that's injured that can still do some contribution in the class.
And they might be able to participate in the training. I don't know what your training is for that day, but if we use Negativa as an example, but you're training, round kicks and marking Hastera and Pe or something like that. Who says they can't do that?
Yeah.
If you're
100%.
doing AUs, who says they can't do AUs?
Yeah.
So at least they can still get something.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
you have to keep your body conditioned.
Yes.
Because if you don't train, and then the next day you're like, you have an intense game in the roda where there's no volta do mundo, there's no anything, and you're going for like a minute and a half straight, but you just took 2 weeks off from training period.
Yeah.
Even if your knee is healthy enough, you're gonna get tired so quickly.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You're not gonna have the stamina to hold that game, and yeah. Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
And it's just funny, like in a couple weeks, all the training start like coming down, and you're definitely feeling a couple weeks. And then sorry, you were, go ahead and say.
No. I'm good.
Okay, so you just have to adapt and examine yourself to kind of like see how far on the injury you are. So, right?
Yeah, it's not easy to do. Like I look at it because I understand it more.
For
So
sure.
I
I
can
understand. Yeah.
so when I look at people I'm like, okay, this is what they need to do. But for somebody they're gonna go online and see like what could be wrong with me based off of what I'm feeling, see what Google says. Maybe they'll ask someone else and then someone else is gonna tell them just put ice on it, which I don't tell anyone to put ice on things because I don't think it's that helpful. And I think that research is showing that as well. So
Okay.
there's a lot of things that we used to believe that are helpful that I don't
Yeah.
think are that helpful personally. Uh, so my what I would tell people might not be what they would do if I'm not there. But I'm
Yeah.
trying to be there, and this is why I'm creating the content that I'm creating and the messages I'm trying
Yeah.
to send
Yeah. Yeah.
because I want people to have a place where they can at least start, try to teach people the principles of pain and healing so that they can from a greater perspective, and I know we could probably talk about this for hours,
Oh yeah.
but I mean, just generally in the United States in particular, we have a big problem of how we use medication
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the over reliance, the over prescription on anti-inflammatory and other pain relieving medications. Like your first step shouldn't just be like I'm gonna pop some
Yeah. Yeah.
ibuprofen, but
Yeah.
for a lot of us it is, or I'm just gonna put ice on it, or I'm just gonna rest.
Yeah.
None of those things are 99 times out of 100. It's not the best option.
That's crazy.
Motion is the best option. Movement
Yeah.
is the best option. You have to change your environment physically because that's what's going to give your body the chance to adapt.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, you have information in a body part, goes up to the brain, goes back down to the body part, and
Yeah.
back and forth. There's like this feedback loop that's happening.
Yeah.
So you have to do things in order for the brain to make those changes.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I agree with that because sometimes we hear so much about like listening to your body, right? And then that's for a reason that you have to understand too that if the pain is there is because of something, and then because there's a lack of something, and then we just gotta find somebody that knows, like yourself, like finding those information and looking that information and that have the eyes on it.
Yeah, and I think I want to take that a little bit further.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
even when people feel like their pain is gone, one of the biggest things that we have to deal with is fear. So they might be like, is this going to happen to me again if I keep
Ooh,
doing this?
yes, important. Yeah,
So there will be nothing worse than to take an element away from a capoeirista's game, especially if it's what they excel at. And we all know how important a negativa is to our
oh yeah,
movement. To take that away from us is to take away an important layer of our game. So how does an individual get more comfortable doing negativas? They might need some help from someone like me to show them that it's safe and to get them on a plan to be like, all right, today you're going to only do negativa in training and you're not going to do it in the Hoda. Okay, today one game you play in the Hoda, you can do negativa. The rest of them try to do more like floreos and like standing movements.
yeah,
Sometimes it has to be that specific. It's like you try things a little bit, you see how it goes. It's not, this is definitely how it's going to work because no two people are the same.
yeah,
No two
100%.
capoeira games are the same.
Yeah,
So I just try to give people guidelines. I try to change one thing at a time because that's another thing in life. If you're changing what you're doing in capoeira, that's one thing. But then if you're also like, oh, it was a nice day, so I went on like a 10-mile mountain hike with my friend. So it's like now you change what you did in capoeira and also the amount of stuff you did outside. Like
yeah,
if your knee hurts the next day, you can't know if it's what you did in capoeira or what you did outside of
Yeah.
capoeira. So you really
Yeah.
try to narrow it down. Try to change one thing at a time.
yeah, yeah. I know to the extreme. And then,
And yeah, I get it. It's hard. I'm an
yeah, it
extreme
is.
person myself, so I get it.
Yeah. No, totally, totally. And then, so we have knee pain and the growing pain. What would be the third pain?
If I'm talking about another body part, I think it would be a tie. Like I said, we were talking about before, low back pain with the Jinga is pretty
Oh yeah.
common, but I think it's more common in newer students than in more advanced students who, and that distinction would be taking more pressure through your legs and less pressure through your back. Because some people, after they get tired and their legs get tired, they tend to hunch over, and that's when their back starts to
Yes.
hurt.
Yeah, yeah.
But I would say it would be a tie between that and shoulder injuries.
Huh.
So I
Yeah.
would say the biggest contributor to a shoulder injury is usually either doing some form of AU or a floreo involving one arm on the floor.
Yeah.
So in my training system, we call this one movement beija flor. I don't know
Yes.
what they call it. I think I've seen it called something else in other groups.
Yeah, yeah.
But taking all of your weight through just one arm, especially as you're learning to generate momentum through your hips, you could feel like your shoulders shift a little bit.
Yeah.
Or just doing it repeatedly is going to cause some strain in your rotator cuff. So those, I would say it would be a tie between low back pain with Jenga and that, from what I've seen.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny that you mentioned that because actually my wife has a shoulder pain because of Bella Flor.
Like I
You
said,
know.
we can get hurt in many different ways.
Oh yeah, and it's just like the just a 1 second of the wrong position that you're not used to. It's just like it leads to pain and be like uncomfortable and be like, oh man, I shouldn't do it that way.
Yeah, but even still, like training, for example, like your wife, and I don't know the extent of her shoulder injury, but she could still put weight through her shoulder, and I think that could be therapeutic.
Yeah.
So how do you guide someone? Like, I'm trying to think of another movement, like she could do probably a regular AU and be fine,
Yeah.
or just yeah. So like just continuing to do movements that put weight through your shoulder that don't hurt more is actually beneficial.
Yeah.
Or doing like any sort of like troca negativa, or even I don't know in your training system if you do a lot of like we train Benguela training in our
Okay.
group, but any sort of like ground movements where you're doing like a like a marking or a kick with your hand on the floor,
Yeah.
like a
Like a
martello
chapéu du corps.
con mount,
Uh-huh.
chapéu, yeah, see, something like that,
Yeah.
exactly. So you can still do those things without being fully upright, like
Yeah.
yeah,
100%. Yeah.
yeah.
Totally. And then so that's the part of the preventing injuries, but as a teacher you also have to learn how to influence your student to not get injured too, because it's just like, again, being a teacher is not the same thing as a being a student, and then it's totally different, because if a person is injured in your class, you're not gonna, if a person is injured in the negativa or the knee, and then they tell you like, hey, like my knee hurts while this moment happens, and you're just like, don't worry, just keep doing it or keep pushing through, or it's like, it's going to be that barrier as a teacher. So how as a teacher, from your perspective, can influence the student for either work out a little bit more, or find some different classes outside of capoeira to get conditioned to different movements? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's important to be transparent that it's the student's body, it's the student's relationship with capoeira. If a student feels uncomfortable doing a certain movement, I think you should respect where they're coming from, because nobody could feel what they're feeling except for the student.
100%. Yeah.
And I think it's hard, like as a teacher, because you have your own experiences, and so you might be like, yeah, I know kind of what that feels like, but when I had it, it was fine. It was fine after like a day, but we have some people in our class that are in their 50s and
Okay.
maybe more, I'm not sure, but their response to injury might not be the same.
Oh
And the
yeah.
amount of
100%.
training they do outside of the studio is, and their intentions of doing capoeira in the first place could just be more for exercise and enjoyment than to be a full-time capoeirista.
Yeah.
Like I would like to think that I am at this point. Like there is no point in my life where I'm not attached to the music and to the training, and it's all part of it. But it's not the case for anyone. Okay, that's a little bit of a tangent, but what I would say is if someone's really hurt, first of all, if they're limping, shut it down. They can't do it. If you feel like, okay, take some time, like try to do some movement, stretch it out, and if you feel better, then come back. And then like we were saying before, stick around, at least stay in the hold up, sing, play, or just watch. Because then you, as an observer, and this is another, being a capoeirista, if you start to analyze other people's games, then you start to create a strategy for yourself. Which I'm far from being good at. I'm still trying to develop it. But there's a lot of other things that you can do while being hurt. I think a teacher who forces their student to play in those conditions should not expect the student to perform well at all. I mean, if you're at like a Jogos Mundiais or something, and you're competing, that might be a different story, but you also have to be in a place where you have different layers of your game. But if it were me and the stakes are pretty low, is it worth it? Is it worth putting me out for months because I tried to go for one jogo, not for me, but maybe for someone who trained all year for something and something happened? Then you'd be like, hey, you feel like you got it? You feel like you could take this guy? All right, we'll deal with it afterward.
Exactly.
I'm not saying that it's a good idea to train to perform while injured, but there's a lot of things that matter more than just general logic. General logic goes out the window when you have other goals. Like I know that at the Summer Olympics, there was a Russian gymnast who competed 3 months after an Achilles repair, and the protocol for that is usually not to, maybe 6 months would be the earliest you'd be able to try that. At 3. Now I'm not trying to say, I don't know the full extent of like how what was being done to that, but it just goes to show you, like, normally they would shut that guy down, but because the Olympics are now and the Olympics only happen every 4 years, it's like, all right, you go for it. And he probably wanted to do it because you never know when you'll have that opportunity to do it again.
100%. And then I'm 100% sure there's somebody prepare to help him, like yourself, somebody on his team that helps him to recover faster, and then to do something to improve that section on a faster time. And I think as a teacher, that's what you would do. It's like, go get it checked out by somebody. Oh, yes.
And I know that there are a lot of barriers to doing that for some people regarding like health insurance and time and all this other stuff. So I totally get that. So I think from a teacher's perspective, providing the resources, I think that would be the best. Go see this person. I know him really well and he does a good job. Or, when I had this injury, I tried these exercises and they worked for me. At least that's a start. And at least you're showing that you have intention of taking care of it. I think energy flow is important, and when you have a student and you demonstrate that you care about them, they're not going to go anywhere. They're going to realize that, because it's genuine to find a connection like that. It's not something that's easy to build. So if you can demonstrate that you have their best interest in mind, they're going to give you their best. They're going to keep coming back. And even from a business perspective of capoeira, like, you don't want to lose a student because you're like, I just get hurt doing this person's class, so why do I go back?
Exactly. And then the prevention. So you think it's very important for us as a teachers to get information and education through like the mechanics of the human body?
Well, important. It would certainly make you a more valuable resource to your students.
Nice.
I know dancers learn a lot about kinesiology. So when you have dance instructors, they sometimes know a lot. They know just as much as I do about certain muscle attachments and movement patterns, and it's pretty nice to see. I think it would be. Hey, maybe I should put that in my to-do list, is to create a movement workshop for capoeira instructors.
That would be
maybe
cool,
I'll make that. I have to think about how that would work, but
Yeah.
uh, it's just the human body is so intricate, and
Yeah.
understanding, even if you understood how the body works,
Yeah.
no two people are the same.
100%. Yeah.
And that is what makes my work fulfilling, but also very difficult.
Yeah. 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 It's very, very, it's just the human body is just interesting. You can do so much and you can get hurt so quick. Because it's just like if you push too much, it's just like matter of like also knowing yourself and be like, okay, I can do 100% today. I can do probably 90% tomorrow because this, but always doing something, and then the next day probably do 110, and then improving always a little bit, and just you just gotta know yourself. It's just like that. That's the best person that can get to know you, just yourself.
Yeah. And I think it's also important just to remember that there are other things in life. It's okay to take rest days. It's
Oh yeah,
okay. Like maybe one day instead of doing that, if you have time, work on music or just do some light stretching, or go for a walk with your family. Do Eat ice cream if you want to have ice
yeah,
cream, so you don't have to worry about being perfect all the
yeah,
time,
yes,
because I don't think that's sustainable.
yeah,
Certainly for me, I hit a point in my training where I'm like, I gotta train every day. I
yeah,
have to at least do like skivas and kicks, and
yeah, yeah.
for me it was unsustainable. And I feel like once I let that go a little bit and I started working on other aspects of my training, like my flexibility, my music, I still feel connected to it, and I feel like my games are getting better
Oh
even
yeah,
though I'm not training as much.
nice, nice. And then before you mentioned something very interesting, that you say that you don't tell people to put ice on their injuries, but what about like it's very common and I've seen a lot of people doing it now, the ice bath. What do you think about that?
Well, certainly not if you're trying. Well, outside of capoeira, if you're trying to build muscle, like bulk, it's not helpful. So
Yeah.
don't do that. In terms of training, I mean, ice baths. It's a lot of punishment for, I think, a very short-term relief of pain. Like I think the thought process is you go into ice bath, it constricts the blood vessels that were damaged from training, and that's going to help you heal faster. Well, it also feels better because you basically have changed the way your skin and muscles feel.
Okay.
Like it's gotten numb to the point where you can't really feel the pain or soreness anymore. You're just feeling like how cold your body
Yeah.
is. So is it really doing something? It If it feels nice, I would say there's no problem with it.
Yeah.
But to say that you need to do stuff like that to recover, I think just doing like a light stretch at the end of your workout could be as good. Or I don't know, making sure that you ingest some sort of fast absorbing carbohydrate afterward would be just as good. But in the moment, it's more of like the sensation
Yeah.
change.
Huh. Okay.
It's like how you feel.
Yeah.
Does that Because could it be helpful? Maybe, but some people are insensitive to ice and it won't work for them. It's What is it really doing? This is all assuming that there's inflammation happening,
Yeah.
which you can't prove that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's like saying you're sore because there's inflammation. It's usually not the case.
Yeah. Yeah. And then now to this different subject to wrap it up. What would be the you advice as a professional on this topic for capoeiristas, just on a general note, to take care of their bodies and prevent injuries?
Be consistent with any sort of training. Make sure that you're getting enough sleep. You're getting enough rest. You're hard to do, but stress management is important. You don't want to be. I mean, stress is a normal part of our lives, So embracing it is important, but if we're stressed too much, it's going to increase our heart rate. It's going to increase our muscle tone. So we're not going to be able to throw these nice quechadas because we're going to be in this relatively guarded position.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of factors to wellness, but I would say just from a physical perspective, make sure that you're constantly reinforcing movement patterns. So I keep going back to the Negachiva. Like if you're gonna do Negachiva, fine, but you don't have to do Negachiva every day. But what you do need to do fairly often, for example, is like do a stretch where you're sitting your heel towards your butt towards your heel so that your knee is bending that much, or do something crazy like spread your legs, sit all the way deep into a squat so that your knees are bending deeply, so that you are always having that sort of input, so that when you do a Negachiva, it's like, this is just what my body does, not like, here we go again, like, oh, I don't know. So you have to constantly reinforce the movement. And if it does feel sore, like soreness can happen because you drank a lot the night before or you trained a lot. There are so many factors. So just listen to your body. Your pain should be a guide, not
100%.
something you should be afraid of. So if pain is a relative experience, which is hard. So somebody has to perceive it as like, okay, this is not so bad, so I can do this. But if you bend it a little bit too much and it hurts a lot, then you're like, it's not ready for that right now. Maybe I have to do something else first before I can go that deep. Or maybe you don't that day. And a lot of it is a negotiation of feeling something and responding. Try something out, see how your body responds to it. What I do with people is try to figure out how long they should do it for, how many times, how many like times per day or week they should be doing things. But even that isn't an exact science. It's just trying to offer the body enough chances to make a positive change, because once the brain doesn't perceive danger in a body part, it's going to let go.
Yeah.
How long that takes is relative depending on how bad the injury is, how much an individual can heal. Like again, this is just physically. So if everything else in your life sucks, like they sleep 5 hours a day and they eat a relatively horrible diet for whatever reason, you're not going to heal as quickly.
100%, totally.
And what type of diet to eat is another layer, which I don't even have all the answers for. Like I would have to refer you to someone else who probably doesn't have all the answers either.
Yeah, but it takes time in self-examination and finding what works, and then not pushing that pain too much, so that way you don't actually worsen the injury. Yeah. Well, man, thank you so much. I'm very, very happy to get to know you and to talk about injuries, because this such a common topic in capoeira. And then just like sometimes we have such a bad form, and sometimes there's an injury and then we don't take care of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on a mission right now to help specifically capoeiristas. I really feel like there's a lot of potential to make a big difference and offer capoeiristas content that they can, at their fingertips, like, oh, my quechada feels tight. Maybe I could try this out and see if it helps.
Yeah.
I mean, if people want to consult me for more specific advice because they're having trouble, that's what I hope to provide them. But at the end of the day, you know, we're coming out of COVID. A lot of us haven't had live rodas in a while, so things are gonna pick back up. So you have to be prepared for what 100%. You're going after. So if I could be that resource for many capoeiristas, possibly around the world someday, that would make me so happy.
Oh yeah, especially now with the online tools, social media, internet, and it's just like you can get connection with so many people around the world and anywhere, just on a little tap. Yeah, man, I'm very happy to have you here, and then we'll definitely need to do it again and just like focus just on a specific injury, and that way we can deep dive into that injury so much better.
Yeah, that that'll be a lot of fun. But foi prazer. Muito obrigado por convidar-me.
Of course.
And yeah, thank you everyone for listening. And let's get after it.
Yeah. Make sure. What's your social media again? Your Instagram again?
It's dr.jordan seda.
Nice. Go there, check it out, man. You're gonna get a lot of information there. Just make sure you check it out and give it a follow, and also don't forget to follow the podcast.
Yeah,
All right, cool,
absolutely,
man.
definitely.
Yes, it's super cool to get to see you. Hopefully, I get to see you in New York too. Come to Indiana
All right.
anytime.
Oh, that's for another podcast. I have my reasons.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man.
Até já.
Bye. Hey, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being part of this episode one more time. And thank you so much for being part of the Capoeira community. I'm very happy you made it all the way to the end. Now, make sure you listen to the next episode next week or the following week or the previous episodes. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram. And don't forget to reach out so we can have you on the podcast. Okay. Thank you so much for being part of this amazing journey in the Capoeira community. And I really hope to see you one time here in Indianapolis, or I'll see you in the Hada next time. Okay. Keep training, keep your Capoeira school, keep supporting your Capoeira school, and keep training, keep loving Capoeira, keep training, keep playing the Hada. I'll see you in the Hada next time. Peace.